Podcast Network Asia.
What's going on? This is Xavier Woods, a.k.a. Austin Creed.
I said give me a hell yeah!
Hey, this is Zeta Zay.
Hello, WWE Universe in the Philippines. This is Charlotte.
Talent is not sexually transmitted.
You need to go back to the drawing board because your game absolutely sucks!
Hey everyone, this is Jeff Cobb.
I'm Lewis Howley. I'm Sam Spoker. We are pretty deadly. Yes, boy. Yes, boy.
Hello, my name is Ilya Dragunov, the star, the NXT UK champion, and you're listening to the Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah. You are listening to the longest running weekly episodic Filipino wrestling podcast and the number one wrestling podcast in Kenya. This is a Wrestling Podcast. Romaran, Chino, Emile ASH coming to you all together on a rainy Thursday evening. The rain is so bad that Chino's Wi-Fi is medyo slow. So if you hear him come in at an awkward time, just know it's because of the rain. So, yun, how is everyone? How is everyone this evening after the Holy Week break? It's back to work, back to reality. I know I am feeling really bad about going back to work, but it is what it is. So how are you guys?
Terrific. Sinabi ko na to on the Peak of the Week episode, which you all should listen to. I feel re-energized after taking a break ng Holy Week, and I'm ready to talk wrestling tonight.
Oh, Chino, how are you?
Yeah, good. Wala na akong gout, so that's great. Enjoy it. My vacation wasn't so relaxing, but as long as I don't have gout anymore, it's fine. We're good. We can talk wrestling.
Yeah, namatay na si Jesus at nabuhay na siya ulit. So,
natakot nga ako ng Good Friday. Baka, you know how they say on Good Friday, pag nasugatan ka, hindi gagaling?
Oh, yeah.
I was afraid I was gonna get gout forever. Not gonna lie. It's like, it was a real fear.
Oh, yeah.
Ninong
Derv says that he has the gout now. So,
wow.
Sorry that you got gout. You got gout for your birthday.
Yeah, colchicine and a lot of water, my guy. Colchicine and a lot of water.
Yeah, that's the key.
All right. Yeah, so we got quite a bit of wrestling to talk about. Some of it is actually left over from last week. That's how much happened last week after WrestleMania. But before we get into that, we want to promote our upcoming event, our 9th anniversary. It was actually last Friday, April 7th. So that Friday marked 9 years of the podcast. So if you were with us from the early days as the Smart Gilas Filipinas podcast, or if you just joined us during the WWP era, thank you. It's been a wild ride. We did not realize that we would ever get to 9 years and to have our little baby be in grade 3 now. So in celebration, we are doing a live podcast recording on April 23. That is next week, the Sunday after this week, Sunday. It's going to be at the PNA Studios on April 23, 6 p.m. You only have limited tickets, around 20 to go around. So only 200 pesos a ticket. We'll be having some food and beverage sponsors as well. So please come check that out. It will be a fun, intimate gathering. You know, just hang out lang as we celebrate 9 years of the podcast. Anything you guys wanted to say in celebration of the 9 years? Chino, because Emile already said his piece no Picks of the Week episode.
Unang-una, hindi natin in-expect na number 1 tayo sa Nairobi.
Kenya.
So, yeah. Nairobi is the capital of Kenya.
Oh, okay. Right. No, that's my job.
All right, so yeah, no, I'm glad that I've gotten to be part of the ride. Siguro mga 5 years after its inception. And if you guys want to talk wrestling on the 23rd, we'll see you there.
Yes, sir. That's right. So all you got to do is get your tickets at pnalive.com. It's right there on the screen. If you are listening to us on Spotify or YouTube or wherever, Apple Podcasts, if you're in Kenya, it's pnalive.com, pnalive.com. Again, tickets are only 200 pesos. Limited lang siya. Let's all have fun and, celebrate a little bit on April 23. Right. If you are also a Wrestling Podcast patron, you may get one of the 5 slots that we have for this live podcast recording. So as of now, there are 3 slots taken, but there are 2 more. Malimo, if you join, you can, get this perk as well. So Emile ASH, tell the people what they can get when they sign up for our Patreon.
So aside from a chance to getting dibs on 5 slots that we have, there's also other perks of subscribing to our Patreon, and you can subscribe to our Patreon by going to patreon.com/wrestling podcast. You could subscribe there for as low as $5. So we have the Discord community where you can interact with us and your fellow podcast. We talk about everything there, wrestling, but we also talk about fashion, memes, food, sports, and we also host watch parties sometimes of the wrestling events throughout the year. And also we have the Pasabays, which we just had one recently during WrestleMania week. So for the next one, I think that will be Black Friday or, maybe sooner than that. So if you want to get your authentic WWE, AEW, or any other wrestling merchandise, you can get it through us. And we also have the review content from the weekly wrestling shows like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, and some local wrestling events as well. And by subscribing to our Patreon, you're supporting everything that we do here on the podcast. So again, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/wrestling podcast for as low as $5. Or in our local currency, it's around 270 to 75 pesos.
Yeah, around thereabouts. Yon. So thank you, Emile ASH. Good job as well, as always, on the read. Let's move to our first topic of the day. Babyface producer Mike, next slide, please. Yon. So if you saw SmackDown last Friday and Raw a couple of days ago, you might have noticed that after the initial fears of Vince McMahon coming back to take over the show, si Tatang medyo nag-hands off na rin afterwards. So as per the news sources, Triple H ran the show again as of SmackDown. And on SmackDown, he announced a very big WWE draft. We knew that it was rumored to be on April after they didn't have a draft last October like they usually do. But now it's official. And he says that everyone, all superstars, whether you are on WWE, NXT, or main event, you are eligible to be drafted, I assume, to Raw or SmackDown. I don't know if that means you can be drafted to NXT as well. But let's take this news one by one. Chino, last week we talked about Vince McMahon possibly running the show, but now that's not the case. What did you think of the news that Triple H was back in charge, pretty much?
I think there was dissatisfaction from both. There was dissatisfaction from both the wrestlers, the people behind the scenes, and the fans expressed enough that it warranted getting Vince the hell out of there. The new owners don't want to see a ship that is all crazy and chaotic. They want things in order. And syempre, WWE also wants to look their best when the sale pushes through towards the end of the year. So tama lang din naman na to placate both parties, both people involved in the sale, they went through with Triple H running the show again. Because as you can see, we got a much better product here on Monday Night Raw.
Sana nga na nakita nila yung product and said na, oh, this isn't it. So they told Vince to step back and sit down, diba? Emile, we talked last week on Twitter and on the podcast na it was a wait and see thing, that baka nga Vince just, came back for one night to scratch his itch. And then it turned out that for now, that was the case. So what did you think of this whole thing?
So in hindsight, may mga takes from last week that didn't age well. Because people were really over. I mean, to be fair, may tinatawag kasi tayong Vince trauma. And a lot of people, they suffered PTSD from Vince last week when he tried to run things on Raw. But a day after that, I said on Twitter, let's wait and see, because Triple H did say that he is still running things. And by the looks of things from SmackDown last week and Raw this week, it's still the Triple H show. And there's nothing to worry about it as of now. So again, the sale is going to have a transition period. So it's going to take a while before we see if Triple H is indeed going to be the guy for the long term, or is there going to be a power struggle between Vince and Triple H?
Yeah, our takes aged well, if you will. So for now, and I think it's going to be a more permanent thing, because I think that for the new owners, or at least for Vince himself, I think the message was pretty clear. If he comes back, there will be hell to pay, at least to some extent. Diba? So let's hope that the message is well received. Also worth mentioning, some details of Vince's new contract with WWE were released as well. and may code of conduct clause in which basically he has to behave or else he loses his job. And that's all well and good, but that doesn't kind of address yung previous allegations and the charges brought up against him before. So what do you guys think of this? Do you think that it's like the best thing to do here to keep Vince McMahon around and on a short leash? Like, Chino, what do you think? Kasi parang I don't know how strict they're gonna follow these new rules.
I don't know, man. Like, on one hand, it's easy for me to say yes kasi yun yung ideal scenario natin lahat, diba? Vince stays away, Triple H regains control, nanalo tayo lahat as fans. But then at the same time, we see how easily he can wrest control away from the ruling parties, diba? Especially now when you know the details of this new deal where he'll end up being the president of WWE. It's easy for him to go, hey, I'm the president, I want to control creative again. Right? What's to stop him from doing that? I don't know if there are bylaws for such a thing in a new company, pero it's really hard to say at this point. Everything is still very murky.
Ikaw, Emile, do you think Vince is going to behave himself? And especially when there are still the allegations from before around?
Yeah, if it was up to me, di ko na papabalikin si Vince kasi he has all these things to address, the allegations and all that. So, but at least they did something. They're trying to say na Vince, behave. If you did another thing, committed another felony or something, you're out. So I don't know. Will Vince behave this time? Siguro kasi for the first time, he's not really the almighty powers that be in the WWE because they're now being owned by someone else. So maybe he will, maybe he don't. It's Vince. Vince is someone who is unpredictable. I mean, we have known that throughout the years. And again, this is a wait and see mode with how things are going to go down here with him.
Yeah. Okay. So the second part of this news, syempre, is the draft. So we talked about the draft. Everyone is eligible, but I don't know if that means everyone is going to switch places. So, Chino, what do you expect from this draft based on Triple H's announcement and how he worded everything?
Chaos, utter chaos. I want it to be crazy. I want people to go to NXT like you suggested. I want NXT people to go to the main roster. The last draft we had that gold medalist, Gable Steveson, appear, diba? Tapos hindi na natin siya nakita ulit. Did a few spots, that's about it. Maybe he gets back into the draft and maybe he's actually game to wrestle. I don't know what the updates are regarding him, but that might be a thing. Maybe we might get to see yung mga indie darlings natin that Raw after Mania pop that people were expecting actually get involved, diba? Hindi naman nagsabi si Triple H na every meeting, every WWE superstar. He basically just said every superstar. So there might be a high prospect signing that they've successfully kept under wraps that they're trying to save for Raw after Mania. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. The way he said it, it feels like they're really going to shake it up. And I don't know how much that's going to affect the current storylines. Emile, what do you think?
The draft is always an exciting time for WWE, and it basically allows some wrestlers to have a reset as well with their careers by going to other shows. And we may see some call-ups from NXT as I think there are people there. So sa tagal nang hindi kasali ng NXT sa draft, madami ng people in NXT who I think should be main roster bound already. Guys like Braun, the Creed brothers, even Roxanne Perez, I think she's already primed for the main roster. And if rumors are true, because I heard of this like weeks, I think after Mania, those people who Triple H brought back will be more prominently featured after the draft. And I hope that's true because madami naman siyang binalik, and I hope all of them gets, much more TV time, much more spotlight, and it will be kind of a refresh. This will now truly be the Triple H era because when he took over, there was still some remnants of the old regime of the Vince. So now after the draft, maybe this is like, now we could finally say that roster that will be after the draft, that would be like now all Triple H, like it's going to be a Triple H show from now on.
But do you agree with Chino's prediction or his wish that even people will be drafted from the main roster to NXT. Like guys like Apollo Crews and Drew Gulak.
Yeah, why not? Like, hindi na rin bago yung mga main roster people going now to NXT. So, and actually thrive. Like, Finn Balor became NXT champion again when he came down to NXT. You got Apollo Crews, even Dolph Ziggler who won the NXT title in NXT. So, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all you guys, but I'm just worried about how or when it's going to happen, like how it's going to affect current storylines. Because syempre, not everything is going to end before the draft. So the draft is going to mess that up a little bit. I don't want to do what they did when Vince was around. Now when they drafted some people, they just moved the story from one brand to another. So sana hindi maging ganun. And it's not going to be that lazy.
Ito pa yung isang naisip ko lang right now. How strict are they going to be in adhering to these brand switches?
Yeah,
like, are they going to make everything exclusive to one brand? Because we just saw recently that the Judgment Day basically just moved to SmackDown, diba? That's basically what happened. They moved to SmackDown to push that Rey Mysterio feud and Rhea Ripley. So, parang how strict are they and going to enforce that, diba?
That's a good question because I have noticed as well that the brands are sometimes not enforced anymore. Like for the Judgment Day, and then for other talents like the Usos or Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns even. But I know those guys are like the champions of both brands, but still, when you get involved in their stories, nasasama ka na rin sa brand switching or appearing in both brands. So that's a mess that I hope they can clean up. And also, I hope they split the championships when the draft comes. I hope that that's a thing that they're thinking about. What do you guys think?
Yeah, especially maybe I don't know about the world title scene because how are they going to split that up is still, up to question. But the tag team titles, they should split that up. Because the only reason why they unified it is because Roman wanted the Usos to win both tag team titles. But it's much better that both shows have solid tag division. So I'm okay with splitting up the tag team titles.
I remember reading online that somebody said they were going to bring back the big gold belt in exchange of the two belts that Roman has to carry. If so, I'm all for it because we all love the big gold belt. I like having the main title guy as one guy instead of having to say you have two different guys, because inevitably what happens is another guy, one of the two guys becomes a B champion. Sa ayaw nating aminin or sa hindi, diba? It's what happens. So if there's just one guy that gets the attention and is focused on, and that'll be better because it's better for the divisions. It forces people to develop both divisions on both brands, even though that rarely happens because they're only chasing after one singular thing. And then if you have a mid-card, you have the ability to develop more stories for that. So parang sa akin wala akong problema dun sa isang champion lang. Yes, it's harder on the wrestlers, it's harder on their schedule, but I see I've gotten used to it now. I don't have a problem sticking to this format moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think Roman Reigns' championship run has pretty much endeared me to the idea of having one major champion. I think Triple H likes that as well, but I do think that the factor that both networks want their own champion as well is going to be a thing as well. But I think, or I hope rather, that Triple H finds a way to make sure that the champion appears on both brands. Like, you can't always load manage the champion like Roman Reigns does, even though, yes, it's best for his health, but that doesn't always mean that he has to wrestle every night on Raw or SmackDown, on Raw and SmackDown, diba? All right, it's time for a quick break before we move on to other things on our agenda. Let's hear from our fellow podcasts on Podcast Network Asia. All right. Thanks everyone again for tuning in and spending your time with us here on a rainy Thursday night. We love having wrestling talk with all of you, even though we don't always answer the comments. Syempre, we like that you participate in the conversation in real time. Right, let's move on. Babyface producer Mike, next slide, please. So the big news from last week that we didn't really get to talk about was AEW making their first big show in the UK. All In, or All In It, as the unofficial name from the fans. So their big UK show is aiming really high at the Wembley Stadium. So, syempre, if you don't know Wembley, it's one of the most historic stadiums that they have over in London. Malaking deal talaga if you manage to land a show at a place like Wembley Stadium. So, for those who are unaware, Wembley seats 90,000 people. And even that is a tall order for a brand as hot as AEW. So I want to ask Chino, as a promoter of events here, do you think AEW can land or can fill out 90,000? And if not, what is the measure of success for a show like All in London?
I liken it to a show that I did that had 300 seats. Alam ko malayo yung difference. Pero I produced a show, co-produced a show with 300 seats. Tapos ang nabenta lang namin was about 180. So a little over half. And when you look at it from the stage, you can really see how unfilled out the room was, the theater was. This was in Teatrino in Green Hills. So a lot of things could have been changed on our end, diba? Better promotions, etc., etc. But we really wanted to go for it because there's value in being able to perform in a proper venue. So I can see why Tony Khan wanted to go for the big times. Diba? He wanted to go for Wembley right away. He shouldn't start so small. Because if he has the capital, why not? Diba? He has the capital to go to the UK to put up the show. Why not? Go for it. But the optics will be weird if they aren't able to fill that as much as possible. So 90,000 is a tall order. That's WrestleMania numbers, diba? Baka wala pa.
Wala pa
diba? So it's going to be hard for AEW, who is essentially an upstart in the wrestling game, to sell this out, especially when they do not have British wrestlers in prominent positions in the company. They have a British stable, but not one British wrestler in that stable. So parang medyo weird yan if they aren't able to push any of the Brits that they have, the few middling Brits that they have on their card.
Yeah, on that note, sige, we've heard from the promoter, Emile, as a fan, let's say you were thinking of making the trip over to London. Let's say kaya mo. Kasi mahirap yun for many of us. We're not Stan C levels of loaded here. What would be the match, or who would be the people on the marquee that would get you to really go for it and, make the trip and catch the historic London show? Like, who would you want to see on the card, on the main event?
Hirap sagutin yan. If there was like one match that would make me want to go, of course it has to be someone who's also British. So one of the participants is Will Ospreay. And then maybe against siguro a rematch. Ako kasi like I'm a fan naman of the product, and I don't need like a super like a star to make me go down there if I have the means. So siguro I want to see a rematch between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. That's the one match na I want to see there. Like I know some people maybe makukulangan sila na maybe that's not the main event that you want for such a big show, but for me that's what I want.
All right. Some people are saying, well, Glendale is mostly saying that he wants to see Pac come back. We haven't seen Pac in a while. He also wants that mythical Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson dream match. That's what I want to see as well. But syempre, one person who has been making the news cycles again recently is one Philip Jack Brooks. CM Punk is rumored to finally express a desire to return to the company and, make money, make business work. And some people are saying that the biggest draw you can have for an overseas show in London with a capacity of 90,000 seats is a match involving CM Punk. So the question here, I guess, is one, do you want to see CM Punk back and do the business, syempre, ideally with the Elite and the Elite, Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, to finally, draw more eyes to their product using their drama. Chino, what do you think as a promoter?
No, stay away. Keep him as far away. My God. Like tempting siya eh, pero is it really worth the risk? I mean, we've already talked about how out of touch Tony Khan is by putting the real drama in a TV show. Tapos gagawin pa nila to? Like, what, does this get its own all-access episode? Is this really how far they're willing to go? It's not worth it. I mean, your focus here should be building the stars that you have in order to draw that money. It isn't supposed to be relying on people who have star power but can bring your company down. It's not a good move moving forward.
Even if that's what the British fan base wants, even if that's who they want to see.
I mean, ano mas importante sa kanila at this point, diba? To please the British fan base or to please the wrestlers that work for the company? Diba?
No.
Parang ganun
within the context of this particular show, like if you wanted to guarantee the number of seats filled, I guess. Like,
hey, yun nga, you can guarantee it with CM Punk, sure, but what are the repercussions that come with that? Diba? Diba? Is it guaranteed that hindi siya manggugulo? Diba? Can you guarantee that he's not going to cause trouble? Can you guarantee that nobody's going to be biting somebody backstage? I mean, you can't guarantee that. So if you can't guarantee it, then what is really at stake here? What are you? Is Tony Khan really willing to risk his reputation like that?
Yeah, I have thoughts on this, but I wanted to hear Emile first. Would you risk, if you were Tony Khan, Emile, or speaking as a fan, do you want CM Punk on this show? Is he someone, and is the potential matchup with the Elite something that would get you to be super hyped about this show?
No, I don't want CM Punk anywhere near AEW right now. Kasi the health of the locker room is much better than it was when he was there. And for me, I would always locker room over anything. And that includes the possibility of selling out Wembley. Kasi mas importante yun. And I think the locker room naman thinks na Punk doesn't bring anything positive. They think he's someone they don't want to be back. So if that's what they say, then I'm going to agree with them. I don't want CM Punk to be back. Plus, there was something that the Young Bucks said, na I know at that point that Punk will never be back. Like when they said na on the All Access episode na they or not in the All Access episode, but just I heard na they almost retired after the Brawlout incident because they were, I don't know, traumatized, or maybe they were affected so much by that incident. So when the Bucks feel that way and they're one of the higher ups in the company, at that point, inisip ko na he will never be back in AEW. So I don't want him to be back. Yes, I'm a CM Punk fan, but I understand.
Yeah, how ironic that you're wearing that shirt.
I am with the people. Like, I promote healthy work environment, and Punk will absolutely, bring negative vibe to that. So no, I don't want.
Hubarin mo yung t-shirt mo.
I don't have any shirt.
Life unshirting. Life undressing. All right. Yeah, so I am very glad that Chino said what he said, because I think it sums it up perfectly here. Aaron has been saying in the chat na it's worth it, use the drama, blur the lines, get that money. Yeah. But, it's easy for fans kasi to say that, oh yeah, it's easy. You should definitely do that high drama matchup. Turn the heat from real life into something that you can use on screen. It's so easy for fans and outsiders, from people outside the company to say that. But it's really not taking into consideration yung feelings ng people inside the company and the people who do actually have to work with and share a locker room, figuratively or literally, with CM Punk. Diba? Like, yes, there is money to be made. Yes, it could mean, big money from the UK fan base. It could mean like the biggest success ever for AEW outside the United States. But I don't think as a performer that money is going to be worth all the potential toxic aggravation that CM Punk may likely bring, especially when you consider the rumors that say that a lot of people in the locker room don't really want him back. I don't know if that feeling has changed, especially when you float the news of Punk potentially being a big draw for All In London. But I still don't think it's worth it. I think Chino, speaking as a performer and as a promoter, knows that you generally don't want to upset whatever balance there is backstage. And Emile said it right, that you do have to promote a healthy work environment. And if it means jeopardizing yung mental and emotional and psychological well-being of the rest of the show, the rest of the roster, I really don't think it's worth it. And either, I think if Punk wants to come back and make the money he wants to make, either he has to go out of his way to be a better person. That can mean so many different things, but in my definition, I think he has to be less bitter and less angry at the world, or Tony Khan and friends and the company makes him, take the necessary steps to be less of a toxic co-worker, So yun talaga, I think it's gonna break a lot of fans' hearts, but I think there are certain steps to be made in order for this to be even remotely viable for the people in the company. So naman, I hope that you guys understand, like the fans, the listeners, the viewers understand that it's not as easy as bringing the guy back so you can all draw some money and use that drama to draw some money. Kasi it's not always as simple as it seems. Guys, anything you want to add to what I just said?
No, I agree. Totally agree. Kasi diba, yun nga, hindi mo naman mag-guarantee kung ano yung gagawin ni CM Punk. Diba? You get him there, yes, but you can't guarantee what he's actually going to do, especially since we've known that Tony Khan doesn't really control his guys like he wants to. Diba? So it's not worth the risk. What they should do is focus on building the rivalries that they have, the feuds that they have, and the British wrestlers and or organizations that they have. Work with those guys, diba? Yung mga, wala namang closed door policy ang AEW. So they might be able to work with people from the bigger promotions in the UK, yung mga Progress Wrestling and all that. Diba? Why not focus on that? Why not focus on building relationships with those brands?
Okay, Chino, I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned that, are you saying, I guess, or do you believe that it's not worth using real-life drama on a kayfabe story?
Pwede, kasi like, again, I'm a fan of the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Diba? So, we all know the Attitude Era was trash at its finest.
I'm not saying that, but okay.
It is. I mean, diba, si Vince Russo himself admits na pinagkuhaan nila ng issue yung mga Maury and Jerry Springer shows of its time. So, yeah, it's definitely horrible. Yeah, there is merit to it, pero nowadays kasi, while teleserye storylines, as I like to call them, are entertaining, they can only go so far. And if you're a company like AEW who doesn't really tell the best stories just yet, because they're a little all over the place, I don't think it's worth it. Kasi hindi pa siya ganun ka-polished tignan. So if somebody else does it, like the WWE, that's fine. It's entertaining. Pero if AEW does it, it'll look kind of messy.
Right. I hear you. Emile, anything else you want to add to this?
Yung interesting point about Punk being the better person and all that. We all thought he was that better person when he got signed in AEW. We all thought, oh, this guy's changed. 7 years have gone by. Maybe time, changed him to be better. And then not even a year later, he was back to being bitter man Punk. So it's not really worth it anymore. Because we already gave the guy a chance to, or we already thought the guy was changed, but di pa rin pala. So
yeah, no, I think what's worth noting is that it was rumored that he was willing to work, but I don't think it was ever mentioned that he was willing to change.
Yeah.
So those are two completely different things. Right. Anyway,
sorry. Just somebody like CM Punk isn't going to change, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's had so many years. He's had so many years to do that. Kung di niya ginawa dati, di niya gagawin niya.
Yeah. All right. That's enough griping about Chicago Phil. But let's move on to someone who Phil also has a problem with. Jeff Hardy. Jeffrey Nero Hardy is finally back in AEW after his months-long stint in rehabilitation. So, who caught this? Did you guys catch this? Matt Hardy said... I
caught it.
Yeah? Go ahead.
Sorry, I caught it on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. A clip of it.
What do you guys think of Jeff Hardy being back? Is this someone that you wanted to see back on television? Didn't have to be AEW television, but television in general.
I can take this. Honestly, no. I was pretty surprised that he even came back. Pero nung nakita ko siya, pumantig ng konti. And I went through a series of emotions. It's like, oh, Jeff Hardy. And then went back to my childhood. And then as soon as I saw him try and swing that chair, I was like, oh, okay. There we go. That's Jeff Hardy up there. So, yeah, it was nice to see Jeff Hardy back as a fan of his heyday. But at the same time, should he have come back? Like, is it really worth it for this Hardy Boys reunion, diba? Is he in shape? How long has he had he's had a few months off. Has he stayed in shape? Can he go as much as he used to? Diba? Parang, well, again, you're risking the health and well-being of somebody who has a known history of substance abuse here. So as much as I want Jeff Hardy to be back and wrestling and hitting those wontons, I also know that I want Jeff Hardy to be healthy and safe and clean.
Right. As we all do. Emile, what did you think of Jeff Hardy's comeback?
I don't know. Maybe I'm indifferent to it kasi we have all seen this so many times. Jeff Hardy relapsing and then coming back. We all thought, oh, is he? This is now. This is the new Jeff Hardy now, and it's a cycle with Jeff, honestly. And my only hope is that he doesn't get in trouble again, because this guy gets so many chances. And I don't know why this guy gets so many chances.
Because he's Jeff Hardy, damn it.
And I really hope everything is good from now on. And inisip ko din to kasi, there was a side of me who says, I want him to just stay home and just be a family man. Pero I think with someone who is yung gustong-gusto talaga yung wrestling, adrenaline junkie like Jeff, maybe him not doing anything would probably lead more to relapsing or those behaviors. So maybe if wrestling keeps him healthy and happy, then I'm okay with it. Pero as much as possible, he should slow down on his death-defying stunts. Kasi he's 46, 45. He should slow it down and siguro just have this one last Hardy Boys run, and then that's it. He should retire after a year or a couple of years.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. A farewell tour for the Hardys in AEW might actually be good for them. They're not really that old yet, pero their body just shows the age so quickly. So with all the stunts that they've been doing, so parang for me, a farewell tour for the Hardys to end on a high note might be good for them.
Emile asked why Jeff Hardy keeps coming back, or why people keep bringing Jeff Hardy back. Have you seen the casual reactions from people whenever Jeff Hardy comes back or whenever Jeff Hardy appears as a surprise? So, malakas pa rin hatak niya with a whole bunch of the fan base. Either you're a hardcore fan, or you've been a fan since the 2000s, diba? Or you are a casual fan who hasn't seen wrestling since the Attitude or Ruthless Aggression era. So Jeff Hardy has that raw magnetism, and it just is the way it is.
Yeah. It's not Emile's fault. It's not his fandom. So.
No, I agree. No, because I agree with Emile that I really don't care to see Jeff Hardy again, because one, he's run down, And yun nga, he's been taken off and brought back and taken off and brought back so many times that it's a running joke already as to when the next mess up will happen. Diba? Even though that's not a good thing to joke about, it is kind of like the pattern for Jeff already. And I don't know. I already get my adrenaline junkie fix from Darby Allin. Diba? Diba? Like Darby Allin does a better Jeff Hardy until his body breaks down like Jeff Hardy's as well. So there's that. Pero malakas pa rin talaga hatak ni Jeff eh. You know, it is the way it is. He's got that it factor that people really love to see. And I guess we can't argue with it. And I guess if you were Tony Khan, you can't resist putting Jeff Hardy on your show because it does bring the audience in, diba? The best you can do na lang is, I think somebody mentioned it here, that you get the right support for Jeff Hardy. And as much as possible, even though you can't control his entire behavior, you make sure that he doesn't slip up or anything like that. So sana na lang. If you still believe in Jeff Hardy, then please pray that, or please hope at least, that they get him under control. And you know, maybe they do that one last Hardy Boys run and then they set him off for life and he can just play shows with his band and sing, sing that obsolete song.
I want to address Julian's comment here. His style of wrestling is probably one of the reasons why he keeps going back, you know, to his old ways. And I agree. That's why I said he should tone it down, I think, to a point where he doesn't need to be dependent on it anymore. Say, you know, he's getting old and he needs to think about life after wrestling, whether he likes it or not, because the industry will continue, but the industry will continue as it is, but Jeff will deteriorate from now on. So, you know, I just wish all the best for Jeff.
That's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because the problem with Jeff, and as much as I don't want to trash a wrestler and how they work here, medyo limited kasi siya. He's like a one-trick pony in that all the best things he knows how to do are the daredevil, death-defying stuff that gets people talking and gets people popping, because everything else, I don't know if you've seen a lot of Jeff Hardy matches, but everything else that he tries to do is not really that great. And as much as I don't want to say that, it is the way it is. And he's really the best when he's flying and jumping off of things, you know?
Yeah, yun nga, kasama yun sa appeal niya eh. It's part of his show. That's the whole point, diba? Poging lumilipad, poging nagpapakamatay, diba? That's the whole point of Jeff Hardy, and you're telling him not to do the thing he does best. Parang, diba? Parang
it's really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, man. It is. Nobody's saying that it isn't sad, but it's what he does, you know?
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna pay Jeff Hardy to wrestle a technical classic. No, you're gonna pay him to jump off a ladder.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah.
All right. One last point from AEW before we go to break. So last week, Jay White appeared on AEW Dynamite for his stateside debut. And now he's gotten back together with his fellow Bullet Club stablemate, Juice Robinson, to make Bullet Club gold, whatever the fuck that means. So yeah, quick reactions, because I already have my reaction. I'll go start with my reaction. I just wish they would finally kill Bullet Club. Like, the shark has jumped years ago after Kenny Omega left. It's not cool anymore. The last few people who still make Bullet Club knockoff shirts and wear Bullet Club gear, it's not even that cool anymore. So I wish they would just, you know, retire this and do something new. Like, there is an opportunity here to do something new, and you're still sticking by the old Bullet Club, which doesn't have the same power it used to have back in the early to mid 2010s. So, you know, that's my take on it. You guys spit on this. Go.
Ito lang
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was, because I became a fan like 10 years ago. So that was around the time where Bullet Club was just pausbong pa lang sila. And I admit, I was the biggest Bullet Club mark in the world like 7 years ago, 5 years ago. But now I am questioning, why is this still a thing? Every time I would watch a New Japan match, I would always be reminded of how far Bullet Club has fallen. And itong Bullet Club Gold, it's like a Walmart version of a Bullet Club. Like,
ano yan, pang seniors. Bullet Club
Gold,
Gold is
senior. Memo plus gold.
It's made for people around 60 years and up.
And you know, no, this whole thing has jumped the shark years ago, and this is exactly why I didn't want Jay White to come to AEW, because I know he's gonna do the same act that he did in New Japan, and we wanted something new with Jay White. So I don't know, maybe in the future it will happen, but right now, please let Bullet Club die in peace already. Like, we're so over
it's interesting kasi, sorry, I don't know if you're done with your point, Emile. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm good. Ahead. You can
Okay. It's interesting because they say that Bullet Club Gold is for AEW. The moment you said that, naalala ko yung Bullet Club that exists on Impact Wrestling. They also started their own Impact Bullet Club over there. Sila before
Sila Chris Bay,
before Juice Robinson left. Sila Chris Bay nandun pa doing Kenta just had a match on Impact Wrestling as the strong champion. So parang, what is going to happen to that? Is that now illegitimized because there's this new Bullet Club? Are they going to merge? Are they going to enter in a rivalry? I also want to go to a comment here in Samedi Glendale. Finley Bullet Club is not so good. I read an article somewhere that said that Dave Finley leading the Bullet Club was the worst thing to happen to the Bullet Club. And I kind of have to agree kasi hindi siya na-legitimize as a true leader.
Yeah.
You had different eras of the Bullet Club from Prince Devitt, diba, founding it all the way to AJ, and then to Kenny, and you kay Jay White, okay pa eh. Diba? But when they made Dave Finley the leader, parang naglagay ka ng batang presidente. Alam mo yun? Parang naglagay ka ng prince na 10 years old. Tapos sabi ko, sa'yo na yung kingdom. Diba? Kasi wala na silang choice eh. Siya na lang yung pwedeng ilagay na because he's their, for better or for worse, he's their top guy now. And I don't know if Dave Finley is ready for that role just yet.
Yeah.
Plus, NJPW has, I think, already replaced Bullet Club as the Gaijin faction. Now for me, it's EMDK. That's the main Gaijin faction in New Japan. And remember, Bullet Club's original purpose was to be that all Gaijin group. And then ngayon, lumayo na siya sa original purpose. And I don't know, maybe malakas pa rin sila sa merch. That's why they are still
I don't know.
alive.
I guess you can make like an infinite amount of variations on the Bullet Club design, diba? But syempre, it's also ran its course, diba?
Oh yeah, UE pa pala, United Empire, forgot to say. So
yeah, you're terrible. You know you're terrible when the United Empire is a better faction than you are. Diba? All right. Sorry, Emile, we're done. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, Bullet Club has became guess kind of similar to Chaos. Na they're just a group of guys, but they don't do anything anymore. But at least Chaos still has Okada. But the Bullet Club, both in AEW and New Japan, sino na lang ba? David Finley? I mean,
yeah. All right. Yeah, that's it. So we don't like Bullet Club anymore, and we wish it would go away. And come back with something new, something different.
Yeah. Something.
All right. We have a bit more things to talk about, but before that, let's go to another break and hear from our fellow podcasts on Podcast Network Asia. Right, a few more things before we end the show. So we already talked about New Japan. We talked about Bullet Club. Babyface producer Mike, let's go to the next topic. This one was a big thing that happened over the weekend. So the Holy Week break allowed us to catch up on some fun stuff. And last Saturday, we happened to have New Japan's Sakura Genesis show live, which is a smart choice because it did not go up against WrestleMania. And the biggest story coming out of that, we talked about the other good matches on Picks of the Week. Please listen to that. But the biggest story coming out of that was Sanada finishing his story. So, Emile, what did you think of this?
Again, like I said, finally Sanada winning the big one. He finished his story which is really funny since when the moment it happened and I scrolled my Twitter feed, all I could see is they're comparing it to Cody. So we'll get to that later. Pero yun na nga, no? People has always pegged him as a main eventer, but he couldn't win the big one when it matters. That has been his story. That has been his career arc. He had so many chances, specifically against Okada, but Okada seemed to always have his number. Unlike Bullet Club, he evolved, changed something in himself. He moved away from LIJ and created this new persona, very new and fresh Sanada. And
the humps na ngayon.
Yeah. And it kind of had this new confidence that was instilled in him, and it finally allowed him to win the big one and finish the story and finally beat Okada when it matters the most for the title. So yeah, I was just so happy.
Yeah, Chino, what do you think of some new blood in New Japan's main event scene? Do you have any thoughts?
Hindi ako masyado updated sa New Japan, although I know who Sanada is and I've followed his career somewhat. So I'm happy that he's now part of this new stable I'm just learning about.
Yeah,
again,
just
not
5
very
guys.
Just 5 guys. What a name, diba? Pero it's just a thing that I've just learned about now, and so now he's the champion of that stable. And anytime you have a champion in a stable, it legitimizes that stable. So very happy for Sanada. Alam ko siya talaga yung pinaka-poging member ng LIJ dati.
Yeah.
So good for him. I actually saw him live during that one Bay Area show.
Yeah.
So
you were there.
I liked how he moved in the ring. Diba? Sobrang batak niyang gumalaw. So I'm glad that he now is the top dog in New Japan.
Yeah. Emile mentioned that people were comparing this story to Cody and that New Japan was able to do what WWE could not last week at WrestleMania. That kind of betrays how much you have and have not been watching NJPW, because for one, this story has been going on for 7 years. If you've been following Sanada for those 7 years, you would know that we have been blue balled so many times. Like, he won the G1, diba? And he didn't get to do anything from that. He didn't get that big trigger pull from that big momentum giving win, diba? So you can't point to Gedo and New Japan as some sort of fan pleaser when he's given me blue balls on Shibata, on Kenny Omega, on Sanada, on Naito, and
Okada.
not Okada, pero matagal na siya. But for years until he thought it was time to execute his long-term story plan, diba? So yun lang. If you compare this to that, then I can tell how much you have not been watching, or at least been vaguely following. So if anything, it proves the effectiveness, I guess, some sort of effectiveness for long-term storytelling that involves the fans suffering a little bit, So yun lang naman ang masasabi ko. Congrats, Sanada. You deserve it after your really nice makeover from the Queer Eye. All right, we're running out of time here, so let's move forward. Let's go to WWE. So let's circle back to WWE from this episode of Raw last Monday or last Tuesday. One of the biggest things that happened is the Trish Stratus heel turn. So it was rumored for a while. They kind of teased it with those little subtle facial expressions before WrestleMania, and they finally pulled the trigger. So guys, Chino, I wanted to ask, was this the right time, considering that the rumors are also saying that the big blow-off match is apparently not happening until SummerSlam?
First of all, like, when this happened, bumalik ako sa pagkabata ko, because my favorite Trish Stratus is the Mean Girl Trish Stratus. That's right. All you people who are jumping on the Rhea Ripley step on me bandwagon, I get it now. Mean Girl Trish Stratus, step on me. I get it now. Like, yes, because see, the Mean Girl Trish was like the quote unquote Jezebel, as JR. As JR, quite the phrase, was the girl that you love to hate. I felt like she always worked better as a heel than as a face. Now, granted, ang tagal niyang nawala sa ring, so she might have to update her ring skills a little bit. Kasi nakita naman natin na hindi na siya kasi bilis ng dati. But I like how they're using Trish Stratus as a heel. We don't ever see these Hall of Famers as heels, diba? Maliban na lang siguro kay Edge at one time, Judgment Day. Diba? It's like a flash in the pan, the heel turn. But this time, this heel Hall of Famer, I'm all for it. Kasi who's to say na porket Hall of Famer ka, face ka na agad.
Totoo yan. You don't always have to get the old person pop, diba? The retiree pop. Emile, what do you think? Was this the right time, especially the rumors saying this isn't happening until SummerSlam?
Yes, kasi kung una, if Trish is not gonna appear much from now until SummerSlam, then it's okay. It's the right move to turn her heel now and fleshed out the story on the times that she will be able to appear on Raw. So yeah, it was a great heel turn. I think matagal na natin itong predict. There was rumors about it. And it was so good. Like, this is going to be the first time I'm going to be exposed to heel Trish, and I'm looking forward to it.
Wow. Pala, you did not catch that in her heyday.
Oh, it was way before his time.
Yeah, it was. Now you will know why we all love Trish, quote unquote. Wink, wink. Ako naman, knowing what I know now, that this is supposed to be a long story, I felt like they rushed the title change and the heel turn too soon. Like, I wanted them to promote the title match rather, by giving, at least a week's worth of promotion for the big championship match. Right? Like, I get that, you have to put on the best show for the crowd, especially after last week's Raw wasn't that great. But, there was time. I think there was time. And if they weren't going to have this match at Backlash, then there was a lot of time to make this work. Like the way they did the Usos and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Like, I think they deserve to have a long story told for all of them. I think it would have been a lot sweeter if we could have seen the heel turn coming a little bit. Like, it would have been satisfying if it all built up and came to a head for that one big moment. But, I guess it still works. I don't know how much Trish will appear on TV from this point forward, but I guess okay na rin. It was meant to be. Chino did say that mean Trish was like the best version of Trish. I think she was born to play that part there. All right, let's move on again. Next slide, please, babyface producer Mike. It is official. Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar at Backlash in Puerto Rico. I said at the top of the show before the show rather, that the whole "what do you want to talk about" thing is corny. But I will say one thing: Cody is really good at selling a story. Like, napaniwala niya ako na he moved on from the WrestleMania loss and he was laser focused on avenging himself, with Brock Lesnar, diba? So I like that he found a way to find a motivation to fight and beat Brock Lesnar. I thought that was pretty cool. I felt like losing at WrestleMania was okay with him because it gives him a lot more chances to do these really dramatic and, rah-rah monologue promos that he loves to do. So there's that. For one thing, I will say that he's really good at those. So now that he has pretty much moved on to Brock Lesnar, I feel like it's time for those who were salty at the WrestleMania results to move on with him as well. What do you guys think of this? Chino, what do you think?
I agree. He really does know how to sell a story. Like, napapilip niya ako. I'm not the biggest Cody Rhodes guy here. I am on the record saying that. But this time around, I really believe that he was doubling down on Brock Lesnar instead of going back after Roman Reigns. Mas naniwala ako sa sell niya na yon because he really just expressed what everybody felt in that moment. So good for Cody for setting the match like he's supposed to. Diba? How he pulls this off with Brock Lesnar is going to be a different story. He likes painting himself as the underdog is the thing. And siguro dito, yes, underdog siya, but he doesn't have that underdog appeal. Especially when he looks like the Homeland.
Well, against Brock, it's hard to not look like an underdog.
Well, that's true. Yes, you got it. That's true. So, yeah, I mean, I am interested in this feud now. Diba? I didn't expect. Noong una kasi diba natakot tayo because he got that berry that we didn't expect. But now, apparently, he's doing his job and he's selling this match. And now I'm really interested in seeing because this was a rivalry that I didn't expect to have.
Emile, your thoughts?
We all like to call Cody as corny sometimes, but this is when he is at his best, no? Just hyping, promoting a match, and I got sold with this one promo. And sometimes you gotta give credit to where credit is due. And so that was a tremendous promo by Cody, and it again, like you said, bro, it made that loss okay. Because we're getting this. So.
All right. Official na ba ang mask versus hair? Nino, sinong ba mask versus hair?
There was a report that Ray and Dom, that was gonna be their blow off. Rumor pa lang yan.
But I thought they were gonna do that like WrestleMania next year, but I don't know. Obviously, hindi pa official kasi hindi pa natin. All right, babyface producer Mike, to our second to the last slide, please. Yon, so the last thing that happened was from last week on Friday. Last week, Monday. I think we kind of glossed over this, but Matt Riddle is back in time for the holiday on April 20. And not just that, but he, from Raw last week, where he was just back on SmackDown, he was now back to avenge his injury at the hands of the Usos. So now he's included in this Bloodline story. We have a fresh new face, and it looks like they're building up to a big 6-man tag match between the team of Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Riddle, and the Fatu brothers. So do you guys like his inclusion in the Bloodline story? Emile, what do you think?
Yes, kasi may context may backstory as to why Riddle is going after the Usos and Solo kasi they took him out. So dun pa lang, like, you already know na when he came back, he's gonna go after. This was much better than, remember on Raw, it was planned na dapat it was Riddle versus The Miz.
Yeah.
I am so glad that didn't happen because this was much better for Riddle to return rather than feuding with The Miz because again, no disrespect to The Miz, but this is a way better storyline, and it also makes sense. So I'm glad you're going in this direction, and may bagong kakampi ulit sila Sami and Kevin Owens.
All right,
I am all for it because it closes a story for Matt Riddle. Diba? He was supposed to be written out by Solo. So, ganda nun. Also, I hope they touch on the indie history these three have kasi nagsabay-sabay naman sila sa indies at one point. Diba? So, maybe they can touch on that since they've touched on PWG. They might as well touch on the competition now or erstwhile competition now. So, parang, baka, malay natin, diba? Hindi na imposible yan sa Triple H era. Again, I'm just excited for all the stoner innuendos that are going to drop in a Sami KO Riddle segment. You know what I mean? Meron yan may comedy segment yan because it's inevitable. Kahit sabihin mo, hindi na comedy character si Matt Riddle or si Riddle. It's going to be there. And I can't wait.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all you guys. Riddle is major controversial as a person, but I cannot help but agree that he is a welcome addition to the whole Bloodline story, which is already okay. It was already good, but them using the history from when he was written out is also another master stroke. All right, that's it for our topics for our wrestling talk for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. But before we leave you, it's time to get to some plugs. Chino, let's start with you. We have some plugs here on the next slide, please. Babyface producer Mike.
Thank you. All right. So I have 2 shows happening in consecutive days. So it starts tomorrow. On Friday, it'll be GB Labrador headlining a brand new venue in San Juan City. And on Saturday, it'll be Durf Embrado headlining a brand new venue, also in San Juan, but in Green Hills this time. Now, you can get tickets for both these amazing shows on comedymanila.ph/shows. You can also get the details to all the other shows we do at comedymanila.ph/shows. Also, a brand new season of the Class Clown podcast is going to come out real soon. Sana replyan ako ni Salome Salvi. But that's all I have for you right now. Also, everything I do is up on my Linktree, linktr.ee/Chino Supersized.
Right. Emile, you got any plugs?
No, just follow me on the TikTok at Emile_Meister22 and on Twitter at Emile_Meister. And since it's the NBA playoffs, I might do something for the playoffs, so just watch out. Yun lang.
All right. As for me, Manila Wrestling Federation is coming back with the next show, Republica, on April 30. That's going to feature Tito Tajiri, Yapi, which we'll talk about in a bit, and the legend, Macho Franco from Pinoy Wrestling will also be in attendance. I do not know how he's going to be involved. I just know he's going to be there. So if you want to catch all of that, tickets are still available. General admission tickets are still available at tickettome.net. This show will be on April 30 at the Power Max Center Spotlight in Circuit Makati. So for those who love going to Circuit for the wrestling shows there, it's a really, really great opportunity to watch someone as awesome as Tajiri and be in the presence of Yapi and Macho Franco and other fun surprises that we may have in there. If you want to also watch Action Novela TV, the recent episodes, previous episodes, this week's episode has me getting back in the ring, quote unquote.
Yeah.
all you gotta do is go to manilawrestling.com and subscribe to MWF's Gank profile for only $10. That's around 575, 600 something pesos. manilawrestling.com. All you gotta do is hit that up. Please do if you want to support local wrestling. Right. So if you want to be a part, if you want to continue the conversation, any reactions that you may have from all our takes on this show and even our Picks of the Week episode from yesterday, all you got to do is hit us up on Twitter at Wrestling2XPod for the podcast, at Roasvar for me, Romaran, at Chino Supersize for Chino, at EML_Meister for Emile, at Monday Night Rowan, NITE for Rowan ASH, and at _Stan C for Stan. And syempre, we also have our other social media accounts, the Wrestling Podcast on Facebook, at Wrestling Podcast on Instagram, and also at Wrestling2XPod on TikTok, where we post our takes, our clips, fun stuff from history, all that other good stuff. Thank you again to the very great, very awesome, very nice producers, babyface producers, and staff members of Podcast Network Asia. By the way, we will be having a live stream as well next week. That's April 20. And before that, we will be recording a special interview episode with the first ever homegrown Joshi wrestler. That is Yapi. She is coming to both MWF and Filipino Pro Wrestling. So stay tuned for that when we drop it. So again, this has been Romaran for my co-hosts Emile ASH and Chino the Yao. Reminding you to stay dry, stay safe, be nice, be kind, be cool, don't be a dick, and have a nice rest of the week, have a nice rest of the night. Right? Wrestling Podcast out. See you. Peace.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.